Hello and welcome to a very special Zero Hanger production where we're in the lead up to the 2025 mid-season draft. We're going to discuss, the experiences for some of the prospects that are hoping to get picked up in this week's intake. And what better way to do it than chat with the pick 4 selection from the 2021 mid-season draft in Paddy Parnell, who played 17 games for the Adelaide Crows over 2.5 seasons. Paddy, pleasure to have you on. How are you?
Good. How are you, mate? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, very well, very well. Keen to get into this because obviously you were one of the very few who have had such a unique experience in playing outside of the AFL. Whether it's local league footy, Coates Talent League, a bit of VFL footy, and then you get picked up in what was the second edition of the new version of the mid-season draft. You're currently with Glenelg after leaving the Crows last year, and you've again nominated for the mid-season draft. So how are things going this year with the Bays, and how are you finding your footy?
It's been good. Enjoyed my start to the season with Glenelg. Been a little bit frustrating, the couple of injuries, but strung a couple of games together in the last few weeks, which has been good, and I'm really looking forward to the back half of the season.
We'll get into your time with the Tigers a bit more at the end of the interview, but I want to take you back to, 2019, 2020, and then 2021 when you did get drafted. So your draft year was the 2020 draft, one that was obviously interrupted with the unprecedented COVID pandemic. Did you play much footy that year in a year that obviously early into you would have been hoping to have such a big year, strong draft campaign, and then I think by March you pretty much have to put a line through any chance of playing footy?
Yeah, so I was sort of had felt I had a pretty good preseason back in 2020. I was really looking forward to showing what I had. I hadn't played a little bit of footy the year before for the Bushrangers, so wasn't quite sure I sat in terms of being drafted. But yeah, as you said, I think it was around March they sort of canned the season, and I don't think I didn't play a game of footy in 2020, so sort of ruined any chance of being drafted in my draft year when I was 18, which was disappointing. But I was pretty lucky with how it all worked out in the end, being able to get to the Crows through the mid-season draft in 2021.
So what was it like, finally coming back to football in 2021? Because I think you had a few games with Murray. You were playing with the Albury Tigers as well in the Ovens and Murray League, and then you have a stint with GWS's VFL. It was a one-off game, a match that actually included fellow 2021 mid-season draft pickup Sam Durham, James Peatling. Your eventual teammate Jake Saligo was playing there as a 17, 18-year-old. What do you remember much from that game, and I guess the run into the mid-season draft with the matches that you did have?
Yeah, so it was a little bit all over the shop. I was playing at Albury at the Murray Bushrangers for a handful of games, and then I did play that VFL game for the Giants, playing against Jake Saligo with James Peatling and against Sam Durham as well. I do remember I didn't get near the footy, but it was a good experience nonetheless. But yeah, as you said, I played for a lot of different sides in the lead up to the mid-season draft. I was lucky enough to place a little bit of good footy with Albury and the Bushrangers, and the Crows took a chance on me in the mid-season draft.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the VFL debut did too much harm. So when you I guess in those weeks prior to the mid-season draft, were you aware that there was some interest, whether it was from Adelaide or other clubs as well? And did you pick that up from your time with Albury at the Murray Bushrangers, a short stint with GWS? Were you aware of the kind of interest that Crows and potentially other clubs had when the June draft was coming around?
Yeah, I spoke to 3 or 4 clubs maybe, so I was aware that there was a little bit of interest. I wasn't certain that I was going to be drafted, so it was a nice surprise on the night at the start of June.
You go pick 4 to Adelaide, and obviously with the mid-season draft, and not sure where the pandemic was at midway through 2021, but there is obviously a lot less fanfare than the national intake when there's, I think it's a quick, video recording of who gets picked where, and you don't get to really find out too much about the players that get picked up for your club. But what was the experience like for you? I think it was probably, a Wednesday night, whether you're sitting on the couch watching the stream or you get a call, and then obviously in the days after, how quick were you to pick up your life and take it to South Australia?
Yeah, as you said, I think it was a little bit different to what it's like for the guys who get taken in the national draft. I'd been to training with Albury that night, and I got home and I was actually just watching on my phone. It wasn't even on the TV, so I was watching it, sitting on the couch with mum and dad, and my brother was home as well, just sitting on the couch watching on my phone. which was pretty cool. And one of my good mates, Daniel Turner, he's at Melbourne now. He also got drafted that night, so he came round, so I saw him. And then, yeah, I was on the plane to Adelaide the next morning, so very quick turnaround, a 12-hour turnaround, so it was very quick.
Now, all mid-season draft prospects get the option of a 6-month contract, and they kind of give themselves the rest of that AFL season to show their value, or you can offer for an 18, and while it might hurt your draft chances, it certainly secures your future for an extra 12 months. What avenue did you take, and how did you kind of weigh up a 6-month or 18-month contract option?
Yeah, I was on a 6-month contract, my first, few months at the Crows, and I think I just nominated that. I was just, really keen to get into an AFL environment, and I was pretty confident. I was quite raw at the time, so I was pretty aware that I probably wasn't gonna play any AFL footy that season, and clubs probably, um, viewed me as a longer term prospect. I suppose I had a fair bit of development, with my body to come, so I was pretty confident that, even if I did only get that 6-month contract, that, I would get another year, if I was to be drafted, which was the case in the end.
Yeah, so you played a bit of sample footy that season. What were the conversations with, whether it was with Matthew Nix or other coaching staff, about the expectations you did have? Because like you said, you were a raw prospect, and they were happy to give you another 12 months on that contract. So what were the kind of expectations from the club, and what were you kind of hoping to get out of the last, I guess, back end of the 2021 season?
Yeah, the coaches were really good about it. I think they, really understanding of, like, I was playing, under 18s footy with my bush rangers, and the next week I was, playing sample footy, like, within a week. So they were really understanding of that, and that it would take time, for me to adapt. And it really just gave me a chance to sort of, I suppose, meet my new teammates and, learn to play with them, but also learn, like, structure and that sort of thing. As I was, they understood that I've been thrown in the deep end a little bit.
And then I think by early next year, you made your AFL debut. I think it was against West Coast, and so you've gone in a 12-month period. You've gone from playing in Albury in a local league. You have some Coates Talent League footy and a VFL stint, some sample footy. You're training with AFL players. How did you kind of see the jump from local level, and then with, whether it's Coates Talent League or state level footy, and then playing AFL? How did you see those big, I guess, leaps from one quality to another?
Yeah, it all happened pretty quickly, I guess. I remember my first training session, was 2 days after I got drafted, I reckon. I think I was a little bit starstruck, um, walking around, with guys that I'd sort of looked up to and watched. But yeah, I think the step up from under 18s footy to sample footy first was really big. Just the, I suppose, the physicality of it, the bigger bodies. I think the speed was maybe similar, but the physicality, was the big one. But yeah, I think I felt like in that first 12 months, I made some really big strides, especially over that first preseason. But spend a little bit of time in the gym and improve my running a bit. And then, yeah, I was lucky enough to make my debut. It was about 12 months, to the day after I was drafted, which was a pretty cool moment.
And for the second time, and I think in 3 instances, you were coming off contract again. And this time, after having, like you said, that kind of patience in your first 6 months with the club, there is probably a lift in expectations now that you're playing AFL level. What was it like playing through that season off contract? And then, obviously you did so again in 2024. But how did you kind of find your 2022 campaign, when I think you had 11 games under your belt, and you'd really found a bit of a groove when you were in Matthew Nix's side?
Yeah, I think a lot of guys have to do it playing out of contract. I know it's easy to, get distracted by it, but I think if you just sort of focus on, the process and training well and playing well, it sort of takes care of itself. But yeah, I was lucky enough to play the week before the bye, I think, and held my spot, for the rest of the year, which was pretty cool. You sort of dream of playing AFL, and that 3 or 4 months there, I was able to do that consistently, which was pretty cool. And yeah, I was rewarded with a contract or towards the end of the season, which was 2 years, so a bit of security, which was nice.
And then 2023 comes around. You've obviously had, you have your first preseason ahead of 2022, and your second ahead of the 2023 campaign, where you probably played some of your best footy. You had that stellar performance against St Kilda, which included a nice Mark of the Year nomination to go along with it. So what kind of performances like those, like how much confidence do you think you get out of a game like that?
Yeah, I think I took a lot of confidence, from that, but I think it sort of, comes back to the preseason. I felt like that was probably I was injury free that preseason. Felt like I barely missed a session, I reckon. So I think I felt like I was playing better footy then, but it was just a little bit harder to sort of crack into the side, as we're a better side than the year before. And guys like Max Myclane, he'd come in. I don't think he's missed a game since maybe missed one game since his debut. So yeah, I felt like I was playing better footy that year. It was just a little bit harder to crack into the side, but when I did, I felt like I was playing reasonable footy, and yeah, I took a lot of confidence from that.
A lot of players, maybe it's in their first year or potentially in their second year, they have that welcome to the AFL moment. Did you have something like that where, yeah, they get flattened or there's a big tackle or there's a veteran who kind of chirps you off a little bit? Was there anything like that you had in your time at Adelaide?
Oh, I think maybe my first game, I think it was against West Coast. It was raining, and I don't know. I just remember it wasn't a massive crowd there, but I remember running out. I lined up on Jamie Cripps, I think, like premiership player. No, like being a very good player for West Coast. Not that he's a massive name, but lined up on him. I was like, this is pretty cool. Like a guy who's played 150, 200 AFL games, whatever he's played, premiership player. He's done it all. So yeah, I'd say it was probably that.
So we go to last year, 2024, your final season with the Crows, and obviously such a frustrating one for you when you had that shoulder injury that required surgery, puts you out for the rest of the season. You're also dealing with no contract for 2025, and you're left to kind of wait on the sidelines. How frustrating was it for you after, like you had said, you'd really built up over the seasons prior?
Yeah, it was very difficult. I'd had a pretty good, sort of pre-Christmas period, that pre-season, and then, yeah, I hurt my shoulder in the pre-season, and I saw a surgeon I think it was the start of 2024, January, and we sort of agreed that, my shoulder was probably okay and I wouldn't need surgery, and I managed to get through till about April, as you said. I think it was round 4 or 5, gather round, I think it was, and yeah, unfortunately, shoulder gave way again and, went in and saw the surgeon again, and he thought, yeah, it probably needed to operate on it, which was unfortunate as I was coming out of contract. Made it a little bit more frustrating, but that's footy, and that's happened to plenty of guys before.
So did you get the feeling like it's got to be so hard done by when you're really hoping to get a full season out your sideline? Did you get the feeling that your future was up in the air a little bit? Did you know you were going to probably not be there next year when you're kind of waiting for the season to tick over and get to the end of the year? Or did you know a bit earlier? Like, how were you kind of feeling and what were your kind of conversations with the club at that point?
Yeah, when I went in to get the surgery, I probably knew. I was aware that it was probably 50-50 whether I got another contract for next year, and turns out it wasn't the case. But yeah, I was in conversation with the club throughout the rest of that season about where it's at, and they were honest with me, which I'm very grateful for. They were very honest with where it all sat the whole way through, and yeah, unfortunately, it didn't fall my way at the end of the year, but that's footy.
Something that I think a lot of fans are fascinated by are the exit meetings and the interviews and where players kind of put their focus after they, probably step out of those and for the ones that are made aware that they're not offered a new contract. Is it something that you think about often and the feedback that maybe the club gives you and how you maybe apply that to your game going forward? Is it something that maybe stumps you sometimes with what you hear? What was your kind of understanding in the wake of your exit interview with the Crows?
Yeah, so mine was a little bit different. So I actually wasn't delisted at my exit meeting. I think the club had a little bit happening in the trade period and whatnot. So they actually didn't delist any of us boys at our exit meetings. So it was sort of up in the air there for maybe a month or two. And I think obviously they had two or three boys or three blokes that requested trades to the Crows. So I think as they sort of started to make their intentions clear with where they wanted to go, that sort of was the writing on the wall, I think. And yeah, come back to Adelaide. I went home for a month there, and yeah, came back to Adelaide for the best and fairest, and yeah, caught up with Justin Reid, the list manager, and Nixie obviously, and Adam Kelly, and yeah, they sort of said, yeah, we don't have a contract for you next year.
And then now you've decided to actually remain in South Australia away from home, and you've signed with Glenelg, coming fresh off a very nice premiership winning season. Jared Lyons also joins the club. Matt Coulthard as well, a former Glenelg boy after spending time at Richmond. What came into your decision making to stay in SA, and how did you kind of weigh up picking Glenelg over maybe some other clubs?
Yeah, I think it was actually quite an easy decision to stay here in South Australia. So always the lure of going to Melbourne, which is a little bit closer to home, but I feel reasonably established here in Adelaide now. And in terms of picking Glenelg, I spoke to a few clubs, but I think it was quite an easy decision to pick Glenelg. Speaking to Darren Reeves, the coach, and Paul Sanico, the head of footy, they were really impressive. And one of my close schoolmates, he played in the flag there at Glenelg last year, Will Chandler. So that also helped get it over the line, I think.
And how are you finding your footy at Glenelg this year? Obviously, like you said, you've had a few injury setbacks that maybe crawled your summer and also into the season as well. But you've got a few games under your belt, and you're kind of trying to build up to that level again.
Yeah, as you said, it's been a pretty slow start to the year, I think, just with the injury and my form not quite where I want it at the moment. But yeah, I'm looking forward to trying to string a few games together the second half of the season, and I'm really excited about what we could potentially achieve, I think. Yeah.
And you've nominated for the upcoming mid-season draft this week. So you've still got those aspirations to find another chance in the top flight. Is that kind of a little bit what drives you at the SANFL level this year, or is it more just a focus of trying to enjoy your football more than anything?
I think it's a combination of those things. I'd love to play AFL footy again. I think most guys who get delisted do want to get back. I think if I didn't have those aspirations, I wouldn't be playing state league footy. So I think those aspirations are certainly there. But yeah, I think being injured I've played a lot of footy across the last 12, 18 months. So, and you spend a few long days in rehab and wonder why you do it. But see, I'm really just trying to find fun in it again. Yeah, which I have.
You've got such a strong group at the Bays this year, and you mentioned Will Chandler. I think James Bell, Oscar Adams, other guys who are trying to get back into the system. Is there a teammate, do you think, that might be worth getting looked at a bit more attention at Glenelg this year?
Yeah, I think there's a handful of guys that would certainly fit in an AFL list. Yeah, I think Oscar Adams. He was obviously at St Kilda for 2 years, but I think he's one of the best genuine defenders I've played with. I've been really impressed with him over the pre-season and the first few rounds. So I think he certainly deserves another chance on the AFL list. Yeah.
Paddy, thanks for taking your time and chatting with us, and all the best for the rest of the season.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.